It's a great privilege for me to stand up here today and say a few words. I'm thankful to the government of today and the ACCF for the initiative to help support victims and families of victims who are affected by motor vehicle accident. Even though nothing will be able to replace the void in our family, we are thankful for the support and that through this initiative to enable us to ease the financial burden and the pain and suffering that we faced as a result of the untimely passing away of my 7-year-old son, Samuela. In addition, funds paid by ACCF will assist in the purchase of a monument in remembrance of my son, and to set up a trust fund account for his other siblings for future education, careers, and other needs. The ACCF scheme enables the compensation claim to be processed within a short period of time, and this relieves the burden of victims and victims' families. I also encourage victim families and victims to come forward and use this initiative in place to assist them with their compensation claim. These compensation claims will also benefit future road victims and victim families. Once again, I'd like to thank the government of the day and the ACCF for the initiative.
I just wish there was some better circumstance in which we could be able to highlight the benefits of this new law that came into being. But unfortunately, this is the reality of what individual families go through, what individuals go through, and indeed what has actually happened in Fiji for a number of years. I think, one has to think about what could happen to them or their families or their child if such an event were to occur. But we have to, as a society, as a government, as parliament, understand that on a daily basis these sorts of things have been happening, and we need to be able to address it. Under the old system, if Ms. Lomani actually, this had happened, if she did reach out to people to help her, she would have had to go and hire a lawyer herself. The first port of call to the insurance company would be a group of people who would think about ways of how not to pay, whereas now the roles are reversed. When she goes to ACCF, their role is to try and facilitate as to how they can pay. And in this particular instance, the ACCF got the information in early March, and today we are here providing the compensation. Ms. Lomani, I know this money is not, in no way can replace your child. But it's one way of society saying that, look, you have suffered a tragedy and we would like to help you out in some way. As the CEO highlighted, that there are also other victims who may not necessarily have died but have suffered injuries, and some of those injuries are permanent injuries or debilitating injuries. And again, we like to urge all those who have suffered to come forward. I know there are some people here sitting in this room where we've had, when the Consumer Council has arranged various forums on this, which led to the formulation of these laws when government was keen about that, and some of the people sitting in the front have actually been victims of accidents, who unfortunately to date have not been compensated because of the old scheme. And it greatly disturbs me that till today we have people who are opposed to this new law. It greatly disturbs me. At a moral level, at an ethical level, as to how they can stand up and actually oppose such a provision. The amount being paid, of course, ladies and gentlemen, as highlighted by the CEO, is $75,000. This obviously is a new and a high amount. As I said previously, when people or families did hire lawyers, they would have to get lawyers, and lawyers used to, as we found, used to take something sometimes up to 50% out of the compensation cost, compensation awarded as their costs, as their solicitors' fees. We saw this. We took a step in 2010, where we limited the percentage that lawyers could take out as fees from any compensation award such as this, and we limited it to 10%. And should they want to pay or receive anything more than 10%, they had to justify it. That was the first step, but obviously the law was limited. Ladies and gentlemen, as we've highlighted earlier on, that when presenting this law to Parliament, that we want to eventually extend the ambit of this particular commission to other areas of compensation where we have what we call no-fault and negligence compensation. Because under the old system, the car that ran over young Samuela, till today nobody's been charged. We don't know whether somebody will be charged. And indeed, when the case does go to court, whether who will be held culpable, it would have languished for years. That has its own course, but we've had many people who have been languishing as a result of that type of process. So we've said that we want to extend this ambit of this law to areas like workers' compensation. We know that that's one other area where people have been languishing within the system. So if we have a no-fault negligence compensation framework, workers also will be able to get some fast tracking of compensation paid to them. We've also mentioned sports injuries. We're a sporting nation, and we need to be able to look at how we can address in that space. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to acknowledge the board members of ACCF. I know the CEO, a former Fijian who's now joined us from New Zealand, who's worked in the area of compensation in New Zealand for a number of years, Parvez Akbar. I'd like to thank him for coming back. I mean, his family's back there, but he saw this as a great opportunity to be able to contribute to his country, country of his birth. I'd like to thank the chairman of the commission, who is the governor of the Reserve Bank. The other board members of the commission are Dr. Ifiremi Wanganimbete, who, as you know, is a well-known medical surgeon. Ms. Barbara Narayan, also a well-known lawyer. Ms. Sarah Jane Wild, who is the CEO of Tower Insurance and is also the deputy chair. And Mr. Ashok Patel, who is a board member of LTA. Ladies and gentlemen, to date we have government, as you know, gave a grant of $1 million in the budget to ACCF. It's already collected $2.6 million beginning from January of this year, which is the levy that now is paid by motor vehicle users as opposed to paying third-party insurance. And we've had some insurance companies that, as you know, had third-party insurance, but have decided to pass on that responsibility to ACCF, and they have transferred to the tune of about $2.5 million into the fund. Ladies and gentlemen, I do not really want to say anything more than this, but however, just to say that we are glad that we now have a system that is victim-friendly. We have a system that is not driven by lawyers or insurance companies, and we have a system where it has a personal touch and is looking at ensuring that the victims of accidents, tragic accidents, or even accidents that cause injuries are actually given some due recognition of their loss or of the injuries that they sustain. And we hope that everybody will work together with this. I'd like to thank, of course, LTA, because LTA now is the place where you actually pay the levy. It comes directly into the Commission's fund, which is then used to make the various payouts. Ladies and gentlemen, without saying too much more, I'd like to ask Ms. Lomani to please come forward so I could give you the check This is the first cheque that we're giving out under this scheme, and please accept this one. Thank you, Lucy.